everyone, welcome back. I'm Brandon, and I'm the author of Ace the Interview, Master Tricky Questions, and Land Your Dream Job. These are proven strategies and examples. And today we're going to be diving into a chapter I really do feel passionately about. It's the 10 biggest interview mistakes that can instantly kill your chances. And these are things that most people don't even realize that they're doing wrong. And I'm just going to break them down so you don't make the same critical errors. So let's make sure you're walking into the interview confident and walking out with an offer. Let's get started. You can find all of these interview questions and tips and tricks in my book, Ace the Interview. It's on Amazon. Go get yourself a copy. But let's get started with the 10 don'ts, interview mistakes to avoid. Again, these things will get you cut from the interview, at least psychologically, right away. So the first thing that people do that they absolutely should not do is speak negatively, period. Let alone speak negatively about previous employers or your previous job or previous co-workers. No matter how bad your last job was, never badmouth your company or your boss in an interview. You might think it makes you look honest, but to hiring managers, it's kind of a red flag. It makes you look like you could be a problem or a challenge. Even if that's not the case, lots of people work at companies that have toxic environments or are poorly run. And there's a lot of reasons that people can be negative or they've had bad experiences with bosses. But understand that a hiring manager is more worried about if you talk about your previous employer this way, what will you say about us when you move on from the company? So instead, what you should do is focus on what you learned and how you're now looking for new opportunity to grow. You can say something like, it's very polished, that kind of deflects it a little bit. Like our visions didn't fully align, but I grew a lot during my tenure there and my time there. And now I'm excited for the new challenge. And I'd even take this a step further. Don't even necessarily talk negative about yourself as well. You might be tempted to say, my employer made some mistakes. I made some mistakes. Don't even take it into that area. Try to be as positive as possible because you just don't want to raise a red flag. That's really one of the first things. So it's generally best to focus on positives, what you learned, and get away from the negatives as fast as possible. And that'll really help you out a lot. The second thing that's really important is that you do not want to appear desperate. I know it's natural to be eager for a new job, and that's one thing. You want to be eager. You want the employer to know that you want to work there and that you have a lot to bring to the table. But if you start just stepping over the line a little bit and saying things like, I'll do anything. I'll park cars if I have to. Please, I just need this job. I've got to pay my rent. I'm desperate. It'll make things tough for you. Desperation isn't attractive really to anybody, but it's not attractive to employers. You need to project confidence. You have to talk about the kind of impact you want to make, the kind of work that energizes you. Employers want to know someone who wants to be there, but not that's going to take anything. And then also, if you're willing to take anything, who's to say you won't just quit 2 months later when something else comes along? So you've got to understand the psychology of my Don't Do This series is basically to not create red flags. Do not create question marks. Don't create negative feelings during the interview that the hiring manager or whoever's interviewing you can kind of draw from. Everything needs to be positive. So spin everything in a positive light, but don't be desperate. The other thing is, I really can't stress this enough, but Don't be unprepared. It's very simple. Do your homework. If you are going to take the time to go through the interview process, then take the time to research the company, research the interviewer, research anything that you think might apply to the job, what you're going to be doing. Research the job description. Not researching the company, the job, or the people you're meeting with, that's a deal breaker. Hiring managers can tell within seconds if you're not prepared. And if you're not prepared for an interview, how are you going to be prepared for a job? So before you walk in, you need to know what the company does, their recent news or achievements, who their competitors are, and how the job that you're applying to fits into the big picture. And this is really easy to do. You just, for the most part, you can Google it, you can Glassdoor it, or you just go to the company's website themselves and view the About Us page. You can also go on LinkedIn and look up the interviewer. What do they do? What's their job? And look at the job description and imagine yourself in that role and how your role fits in with the company. What is the company's goals? What industry is the company in? Where are they located? What's the culture like? And as you go through the interview process, you might get some of this information from talking to the recruiter or talking in your first interview. So write that down, save it, go over it, know the company, know what they're trying to accomplish, know what their culture's like, know what their statements are. And that'll really help you be prepared. And to be honest, the more prepared person often gets the job or often gets the offers. So being well prepared is a huge plus in an interview, and being unprepared will get you immediately moved out to the side. So that kind of goes into my next thing. Don't ask, tell me about this company. What does the company do? I've been on plenty of interviews where I've been talking to a candidate and I've asked them, what do you know about our company? What does this company do? Usually somebody has kind of a broad idea, or they've at least gone onto the website and spit out some information. I've occasionally run across people that are just brutally honest and say, I'll be honest, I really don't know what you do. And that's not an immediate disqualifier necessarily, but it's a bit of a question mark, a bit of a red flag there. At the same time, it is good to be humble and, explain, hey, I went on your website, I noticed that your company manufactures this certain product and it seems to be used in the medical industry, but I truly don't understand how you're positioned and why your company is so profitable at what they do and so good at it. Can you give me some more information on that? It's good to ask open-ended, thoughtful questions like that, but show that you've done some research and you're trying to truly understand the company and maybe how you can position yourself in the company. But don't have no clue what the company is doing. That's a big no-no. And don't ask, I don't know what you do. I honestly didn't research this. Kind of shows that you're lazy, you're not serious, you didn't prepare. Instead, say something like, I saw that you just launched an initiative around marketing. How does this role support that marketing project? And, that'll be a big plus, and that'll also help the interviewers start envisioning you in the role. Number 5 is don't be vague. Generic answers can kill your chances, especially if there's a lot of competition for a role. When you're in an interview, you inevitably are going to get, tell me about yourself, or go over your background with me. It's very easy to just spit out a generic thing like, I'm a team player, self-starter, and results-oriented. Thank you for asking this question. That's just fluff. It doesn't mean anything. Instead, tell a story of something that you've done in the past that's successful, and maybe see how you can integrate that into what they're doing right now. Or maybe you've asked some questions about the challenges that either your boss or the team or the company is facing, and maybe what you can bring to the table to help with those challenges. It's great to use real examples if you can. And there's one method where you can kind of frame it with a STAR method. So it's using a situation, a task, an action, and a result, and giving really good specifics. And then there's another method that I actually like even better, which is to give examples of what you would do in the role now. And that kind of helps the employer think about you in the job. And so mixing up some stories or some good things that you've done in the past with how you'll kind of help in the future solve their problems with these, that's what you want to do when somebody asks you these questions. Not the I'm a team player, self-starter, results-oriented, I'm highly organized and very charismatic. That's not really either true or what they're looking for. Now, number 6 is probably one of the most important things, especially early in the process. But at any phase in the process, you don't want to be low energy or rude. When a company has 100, 200, 300 people applying to a role, immediately the people that are not going to get moved on are just low energy. Maybe they're just don't seem that interested in the role. Even if you are, maybe that's your personality. So, a lot of nonverbal communication makes or breaks your first impression. How you use body language is like 70% of your communication. So sit up straight, smile, speak with energy and intention. Mirror your interviewer a little bit, not overly weird, but in a kind of a friendly way. Let them know that you like them, compliment them. And always be really polite to everybody, whether it be the receptionist, the janitor, or the CEO of the company. Everybody's a team member there, deserves respect, and you never know. The receptionist could be the CEO's granddaughter, or the janitor could be one of the hiring manager's friends. You need to have a good brand and people have a good impression for you in the role and in the company altogether. So your posture, your tone, your eye contact communicate way more than you think. If you walk in slouched and your shoulders are down and you're bored or you're tired or you're not sitting up and you're not projecting, fix it and try to smile, try to be friendly, try to be high energy. For the most part, they want to give somebody the job that wants it, that's happy to have it. So be high energy as opposed to low energy, and be polite. So number 7 is do not forget to follow up. You would be amazed. I have helped interview and hire sales teams for very high paying and influential roles, and I'm shocked that sometimes some people don't bother sending a thank you note. They don't bother following up. And I have to tell you, especially for roles that are either, that require communication with clients, that require working with teams and having solid communication and follow-up, like project management, sales, marketing, or like customer service, anything that really involves communicating with people, send a thank you note, because you're going to have to do that in your job anyways. You want to be following up every time with everybody, even if it's just a quick message. It also really actually stamps in or that you're interested in the role. Hey, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy person, and I want you to know I'm even more interested in this role than I was previously. I'm really impressed with the team. I think you'd be a great leader. I think that I could really help you in solving the problems that you face. I understand the challenges that you face in this role. So please keep me in mind. And by the way, I'm available the rest of the week. My days are open. Let's set up another time to speak if you have any questions. It doesn't have to be that long-winded. It could even be something as quick to the recruiter. Hey, it was great to meet you. You did a great job. Thank you so much. I'm really interested. If you can please help me get this role, do it. You'd be surprised how much influence a recruiter or a talent acquisition person can actually have in a role, especially higher up. It's surprising. And if you don't follow up and you're not showing interest, it's very easy to move on to the next person. One thing that gets people caught and stuck, myself included, I've been stuck on interview questions where I really don't know how to answer it, or I don't know how to do it. And that's a challenging thing to go through. So if you are asked about a skill that you don't have, it's very easy to say, I honestly don't know. I could learn it, but I don't. Don't do that. Instead of that, try to at least connect it or relate it to something that you've done in the past. And you've got to kind of think quick. And this is where it's really good to go through interview practice questions and interview scenarios so that when you do get stumped, you have something to say. So one thing you can say instead is, I haven't done that exact thing, but I've worked on something similar. So, I mean, this shows kind of resourcefulness and adaptability. And honestly, employers love that because there's going to be things that you run across in your job and you don't know how to do it. In fact, in technical interviews, there's often times where you don't know how to do something, especially as a software engineer or some sort of IT role or data role where you don't really know how to do something that's specific or niche. You'd be surprised if you kind of try to come up with some examples of some things that are similar and then see if you can work with the interviewer, if they'll give you some clues and hints. If they'll tell you, oh, well, we're using this particular language of software for this particular task, and we're using this particular system to kind of work with it. And then you can kind of ask and try to work together, and you'd be surprised how often a hiring manager, especially in a technical role, will see how the back and forth goes and even try to teach you, well, you might not know this, but we're actually doing it in this way, and this is how we specifically do it. And then you've actually learned what they're talking about. It must be really important. And if you can show, oh, I learned what you're teaching me, it might actually impress the hiring manager because they want to teach people often and they want you to know how to do it. But I'm going to give you an example. One of my favorite interview examples of all time is from C-3PO from Star Wars in A New Hope, the first Star Wars movie. I'll never forget it as a kid. Luke's uncle Owen goes up to C-3PO. I hope you can remember what I'm talking about. And he asks him something like, do you understand? What I really need is a droid that understands the binary languages of moisture evaporators. And C-3PO, ever the quick thinker, he smartly responded, well, I have worked with similar equipment. Specifically, I worked with programming binary load lifters, which are similar to your evaporators. And Owen was instantly convinced, okay, good enough. That'll work. At least you're a quick thinker on your feet, C-3PO. And so that is just an example of if you don't know how to do something, try to come up with something in your past or try to work with them a little bit and see if you can kind of do a learning exercise. And if you're absolutely stuck, we're going to go to my next tip, which is don't get stumped into silence. I've been stumped. I've been in interviews where I honestly didn't know what to say. I'm going blank. And I've interviewed people at high-level roles. Vice presidents, where they seem to kind of be stumped a little bit and blank. It happens to all of us. But if you don't have the perfect answer on the spot, I got something for you. Don't go blank. Instead, say something like, "That's a really great question. I need a little time to think it through." Or, "That's a great question. Can you kind of clarify on what you mean?" And this might just buy you a little time to start thinking. Or do you have an example of something that's you've recently gone through as a company or a team that kind of relates to why you're asking me this? All these are just trying to get little hints and clues and get them to interact and maybe buy yourself a little time. But if you're absolutely stuck and just overwhelmed and locked up, just relax and say, "Well, you know what? I honestly need to think about that. Can we come back to that? Let's circle back to that question. I need to think about that just a little bit." I have actually used that myself and was surprised that the interviewer's like, "Okay, we'll come back to it. No problem." In fact, I think they were almost impressed a little bit that I did that. So now, number 10. This is really, really, really important. Don't forget to ask smart questions. Don't ask bad questions. Ask good questions. So at the end when they ask, "Do you have any questions for us?" Always say yes. Always take your moment to shine. Ask about the team. Ask about the metrics for the role. Ask about what a 30, 60, 90-day plan or goals are. Some bad questions are something like, "Well, what's the salary?" Now, you might have that question for the recruiter, but when you're actually in the interviews, try to avoid that. Or, selfishly focused questions. "Well, how much PTO do I get? How much vacation does this job have? What? I really need to know what my hours are going to be." These very tied up questions. You should have probably, have those addressed with the conversation with the recruiter or the job description. And the salary question does come into play. But this is not the time. This is not the time to ask those questions. Save those for either later stages or earlier stages. But when you're in the heat, you want to ask some good questions. And also, if you can focus your questions onto helping the interviewer envision you in the role, then it's just a double whammy. So you could say something like, "So what are the success metrics for the role?" That's a good question, and that gets the conversation rolling. But if you really want to land the job, you'd say something like, "Well, if I'm to take this role 90 days from now, what are some of the things that I've done for you to know that I've been super successful in this role?" Wow, that's a great question. And it makes me start thinking of you in the role and envisioning you in the role 90 days from now. Well, here's some of the things that I think you'll have accomplished. Great. So, some other good questions would be, what challenges, do you think I'm going to face right away in the role? Well, to be honest with you, we've got several challenges, and they'll lay those out for you. And that will actually help you come up with solutions. "Oh, I see that you have this certain challenge. But in fact, I've provided solutions for that in the past, or I've dealt with that in the past." Or, we've got a very fast-paced environment, but we're very ambiguous. You're going to have to be able to kind of navigate your own way without a lot of help. Perfect. Because in my last job, that's exactly what I did. I really kind of ran my desk myself. And it was a really fast-paced environment where I had to have a lot of common sense and think quickly and make a lot of calls with good judgment right away. So I think that that's not a problem at all. In fact, I really like a fast-paced environment. Just ask smart questions, open-ended questions, questions that help them envision you in the role, questions that help you lead to how you're going to solve their problems, questions that help you kind of show how you're going to work with the team and be a good teammate. And maybe even some questions on, "Hey, am I going to enjoy, the hiring manager might be wondering, am I going to enjoy working with this person?" Well, if you're asking smart questions and you're considerate and you're thinking things out, they're going to probably start envisioning you that, yeah, I think I will enjoy working with this person. I think they will be easy to work with. So a lot of these things, by asking good questions, you're solidifying all of the others don'ts that you don't want to do. So I have a whole chapter on good questions to ask, smart questions to ask, and turning the interview into the really a good conversation. So there you have it, though. I've given you the 10 biggest mistakes that can cost you the job before you even know it. You've got to avoid these, and you'll already be ahead of basically most of the candidates. Let me break them down for you really, really quick. And so the first one is don't speak negatively, period, especially about your employers or your boss. The next one is don't appear desperate. Thirdly, don't be unprepared. Fourth, don't ask kind of silly questions that show that you're unprepared, like, tell me about your company, if you haven't done any research. Don't be vague or general. Have a branding statement, and don't be vague or general when somebody asks you a question or specifics about yourself. Don't be low energy. Don't be low energy and unpleasant or rude. Have good energy. Let them know that you want the job. Let them know that you'll be fun to work with. Have good body language. Smile. Make sure that you compliment them or that you mirror them, that they know that you're a likable person and that you can communicate well. Don't forget to follow up. Send thank yous. If it's been weeks and you haven't heard from them, send a note. Follow up. Be persistent. Don't say that you don't know how to do something. Try to find some examples that relate to what you're going to be doing and showing that you're adaptable. Don't get stumped. Don't be stumped into silence. If at worst case scenario, ask if you can circle back. Ask some questions. Try to get some clues. Try to get some time. Or at worst, say, you know what, I need to think about that. Can we circle back to that question? And then, very important, ask good questions. Don't forget to ask questions, especially open-ended questions that will help them think about you or envision you in the role. So there you have it. 10 biggest mistakes that can cost you the job before you even know it. Avoid these. You'll be ahead of most candidates. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. Check out my book, Land Your Dream Job. I also have another book, Ace the Interview. And they're on Amazon. It's packed with, real world advice, sample answers, strategies that work. And hey, drop a comment if there's an interview mistake you've made or one you've seen. I mean, we're all learning here. Write it in the comments, or if you have a question for me, write in the comments. I'll try to answer it. But thanks for watching. Now, go land your dream job.